My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome everybody to the Friday. I may actually do two shows today, but this is the first one that will come out because I'm missing a couple days as I've been traveling all over the place over the past couple of weeks. But today I'm still in Arizona, and I was back in Scottsdale at Kelly's at South Bridge, and it's a great little restaurant and another amazing group of people that were there. Now, as I've been going all over the country, and I've been talking about this in all the shows that I've had this week, how the patriots that live in what I like to call occupied states or occupied cities, how they differ in the way that they, not that they see things different, but just the life that they have. And when you talk to them, it's much more bleak when you talk to people who believe in the Constitution, who are conservative and even liberal and live in these occupied leftist cities and states. And today at Kelly's, I got to meet another group of incredible patriots. Some of them were at the last time at the venue last week, and it was a good speech. It was overwhelmingly hot in there. It got better as because they closed the doors while I was speaking, and it got better. But it was really hot in there, and these individuals, they just stuck it out. And I just got to tell you, there's just something about Arizona and the people that I meet here that I really like. They're good people, and they really do care about freedom and about the Constitution. Now, they're not everybody that lives in Arizona. I'm sure there are people that don't care at all. They don't give a crap, and they don't even, like a lot of Americans, they don't understand the reality of freedom. They just take it for granted because they're born into it. But one thing I'm definitely seeing, and I am going to give a critique here, is that the Republican Party in Arizona is very similar to the Republican Party in Florida. Not like in Illinois where I was, where they are willing to work when somebody, like myself comes through and I'm trying to work with them and help them, put them on the podcast, do these different things. Incredible there. And they are really trying to make a difference in that occupied state. But here in Arizona, I don't get that feel from the Republican Party. In fact, there's some incredible people that I have met that work with the Trump victory team, and those people are great. But overall, the Republican Party and the establishment people here, they're kind of non-existent, and I don't get good feelings. I don't get good vibes from people when they talk about them. The governor of Arizona is definitely not liked. He's definitely establishment. And today is the third time where I've seen him mentioned, and they boo him. They just do not like this guy. So he's not going to be here much longer anyway. But overall, I will give that critique about the Republican Party in Arizona. And here's the real critique is that they are caught up in politics. Now, what do I mean? Yeah, they're a political party. Of course, they're going to be caught up in politics. What I mean is they just go along like it's business as usual. And business as usual in politics has to do with, well, I know this guy and I have this position. And we're not even talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the people who do things for the Republican Party. And I saw it the other day when I was at the Trump rally or meeting that they had there with Latinos for Trump. And it just permeates. I feel it when I go state to state. Yesterday, I talked about how I feel the difference in the states and how I feel that when I'm talking to patriots that live in these leftist states and cities versus the patriots that live in these free states in the country, it's just a different feel. The energy is different. The conversation is different. It's full of less hope in these other places and more worry. Here, it's concern, but not really worry. It's concern. But I mean, the interesting thing about that is that it's not very far, which I pointed out today, to go to California or go to New Mexico or Colorado from Arizona and Mexico in general is right there. I mean, the chances of this stuff coming here, I mean, it's 100%. It will come here. There are leftists here. It's slowly making its way, but a lot of the times it's because Californians move out of California and then they move and they permeate these free locations and they come here. When I say free, I don't mean they're free living arrangements, but I'm talking about the freedom is there. and free to be what you want, free to carry a weapon if you want. So these people come here from California and they ruin it. Same thing with Florida and New York. But the politician or the political parties here, it's like business as usual. They're just, they're more concerned with the political game and raising money for these people. And I literally don't think that they see the reality of what's happening. You talk to them and they'll talk about, getting this person elected and how they're, going to try to raise money here and how they don't like Biden and this and that. But they don't talk about, and you don't even see them engaged in this type of ground dialogue. Now, I have, like I said, people with the Trump Victory Tour, they are hard workers. They're knocking on doors. They want to get Trump reelected. It's the establishment politics, what I'm talking about. It's the people who should be out here. You see, there's only two political parties that really matter in this country, the Democrat and Republican parties. The Democrat Party do exactly what I'm critiquing the Republican Party for not doing. The Democrat Party go out and although it's a lie and and these people are falling blindly like robots, but the Democrat Party is out there making people aware of their lie, bullshitting people into believing what they're believing. They're having meetings on their ground. They're cool to people and they want them involved and they get them involved. They convince them to march and riot. I mean, do you realize that? That's the Democrat Party. I don't know if you realize that. The Democrat Party and activists from the far left are the ones responsible for these riots. They're responsible for the big, huge, massive protests that turn into riots, the protests that are built upon lies about oppression and racism and how cops want to kill everybody who's got dark skin. And they build these huge protests and then riots out of those lies. Why? How do they do it? They have a ground game. They're out there working on a personal basis with these people. Look at Planned Parenthood, for instance. I mean, it's terrible that I'm having to use these groups as models, but Planned Parenthood, you even approach their table at a university, they're going to try to get you to volunteer for Planned Parenthood. And they work the abortion issue and giving people abortions. They work that like the Republicans should be working the Constitution and understanding of what freedom's all about. If the Republican Party had their head in the game, they weren't so concerned with their stature and who they know and, oh my gosh, this person's coming to town. They get involved in these things. If they had their head in the game, they would be on the ground level like the Democrat Party. They would be reaching out and they would be talking about this massive issue called the failure of the country that could occur very soon. I watched just a part. I think Glenn Beck made this thing with the Blaze and they put it up on YouTube. I'm not finished watching it yet. I liked Glenn Beck when he was on Fox News. So it's kind of interesting to see him come back to this. On my cable company in New York City in Manhattan, when I lived there, they had the Blaze on there. I got to be honest with you. It's one of the most boring things. It's like watching, the sun beat down on a glass table. I mean, outside. It just doesn't, I don't know where I came up with that analogy, but it just doesn't do anything. It's like watching grass grow. It's boring. It's a lot of them talking back and forth, and it doesn't really, it's not the old Glenn Beck that we used to watch on Fox News, but this was, and it was pretty good, but I didn't get all the way through it. But what I did see that I have to disagree right away with it, if you do watch it, is that he says, if the Democrats show that the Republicans did something that he's trying to make a point that the Democrats are lying about. They're already saying that the election is going to be rigged by Trump and so on and so forth. And he's saying, if it was true that Trump and that his group were bad and that the Republicans were doing this in the election and the Democrats won it fair and square, then I would go along with it. See, that is even the same exact head in the sand while he's talking about the reality of how bad things are and how the country may end. In one breath, he's also saying, hey, if they said he was bad, I would go along with the vote. How could you say that? How could you say that? The Democrat Party, if they are in charge, will destroy this country. So I'm telling you right now, if the Democrat Party wins this election, it's going to be through fraud. And if they take over, you better get ready for a fight, because they are going to take away your rights. They're going to start to destroy this country the way you know it. You're going to get taxed to the point where it's not even worth working. I think I've told this story before. There was a guy, I don't know him, a friend of mine knows him. He was a corpsman in the Navy. He got out of the Navy. He has kids and a wife. And I guess he was working for a while, getting his, or he became a paramedic or something. He became something. It wasn't a physician assistant. It wasn't that level. It was like a paramedic. But he was making money, and he was making good money. And so where he lived, if he went on subsistence, because they had several kids, his wife wasn't working. If they went on subsistence, he could basically pocket over $46,000 a year. In New York, it could be upwards of $70,000, $80,000 a year if you work the system right. That's where they pay. It's not that you're getting that cash, but that's where they pay, a portion of your apartment through a stipend, or they give the money there, sometimes up to $1,200 that you'll get to rent. They give you the, I forget what the name of that card was. It used to be food stamps, which I loved because you had to show those food stamps. People would see that you were on it, so it would give you an incentive to get off if you had any type of concept of how other people were looking at you. But now they have the EBT cards, I think is what they're called. So they're just like a regular credit card. So you add all these different subsistences up, and it equals up a tremendous amount. And my friend was talking to this former corpsman, and he said, hey, there's these jobs here. Why don't you go get them? They're paying like $47,000 a year. And he said, listen, think about it. For $46,000 a year, I don't have to do anything except spend time with my family. I mean, and this is his words, not me. He says, I'm not a lazy person. I believe in working for a living, but if the nation is going to pay me $46,000 a year to spend time with my family, why wouldn't I do that? Now, I think that's a bullshit answer, and I think he should be smacked upside the head for saying that. And I think it's also, really, it should be criminal the way people use these handouts the way that they do, because the taxpayers are who pay for that. However, this is the way people think. And if the Democrat Party gets into power to the level that they are moving towards, that will be everywhere. Why would anybody work and have everything taxed when they could go on subsistence and that's actually what they get? See, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That is how you destroy a nation. So I can't agree with Glenn Beck when he says that if the Democrats want it fair and square, he'd go along with it. That's not going to be the case. If they win fair and square, they're going to kill this country. And they're not, from what I've seen, and I'm going around, everybody's questioning Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. Everybody. I'm going to play a couple sound bites here. I don't have to go through the whole, it's a waste of time to go through the whole town hall that yesterday, which was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if they were driving the cars inside. I couldn't really tell because I had to watch the town hall through sound bites, but it was like a drive-in town hall, and people were still wearing masks. It's in the cases where they had the microphone, you could barely see the people that were behind them. That's how far away they were, and yet some of the people are still wearing their masks when they ask the question. It's just silly. It's stupid. So getting back to the Glenn Beck thing, I disagreed with that part of it. I haven't watched the rest of it. He's doom and gloom, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it because the reality is we're in a very bad place. And how do I know we're in a very bad place? It's not because of anything that the Democrats are doing right. Again, just like before, where I'm talking about how they are organized. I mean, they are doing that right, but the reality is they could be the most organized group ever. As I pointed out yesterday, they're committing massive felonies and nobody's stopping them. So it's the reality is their success is determined by our inability to stand up against them, to have an attorney general that would actually do something and actually, instead of just talking big words like Bill Barr does every day it seems like the divide between him and other people in the Justice Department gets bigger and bigger, but I still don't see Bill Barr doing anything. He just talks about it. But the Republican Party, or technically the conservatives in this country, are not banding together like the Democrats are to stop the Democrats. I mean, they just set the example for what you would call unity among their ideology. I just saw a thing a little while ago. I didn't even have to read the whole story. I just looked at the headline that Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, says that Antifa is not a terrorist group, that it's an ideology. I mean, this is very disturbing for me. It's very disturbing because they will call ISIS a terrorist group, right? And they are bound by an ideology. But yet these people who are trying to overthrow, these are Americans, trying to overthrow this country and this Constitution, and they clearly are organized. Clearly, their objective is not an ideology. It is a political concept. And Christopher Wray is not going to do anything about it. You see, this is where we have failed as conservatives and people who understand what Constitution, all this is about. They should be, when the president stands up to talk, it should just be constant interruption where people are saying, get rid of Christopher Wray. Put somebody in there that is an FBI agent. Get rid of Bill Barr. Put somebody in there that's an attorney who thinks like a conservative. Now, there's going to be Democrats who say, well, that's not how you pick an attorney general or judge. I disagree. Conservative is what the Constitution was written, the mindset that the Constitution was written with. And these people should be gone. But see, if we don't stand together, and that's the point I was trying to make tonight and that I've been trying to make as I meet all these wonderful people, we have to stand together. But you can't stand together if you don't get up. You have to get up. There has to be groups of people willing to either do what the left does, where they go and they protest. I mean, look, evidently, with the exception of, a few people here and a few people there, you can just burn stuff down in cities and nobody's going to stop you. Although I guarantee if it was a conservative rally, not a Trump rally, but a conservative protest, over the Constitution, you started tearing stuff down, I can guarantee you the forces would come to get you. Because that's the way the cops are when it comes to conservatives. They know they're probably not going to get fight back or pushback, so they arrest them. And yes, I was a cop, and I don't think cops are bad. But I think they're caught up in something, and they're being used, and they themselves could be stopping a lot of this stuff, and they're not. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can protest or riot anywhere that you want. As soon as they step out of the area where they've been given a permit for, the protest should stop. Then if they want to go do an illegal protest, they can do that, and then they should be arrested for that. That's the way it should be. So, again, we are in the predicament we're in because the left is organized and the right is not. Because the left is moving and pushing not just their ideology, but their concept of overthrowing the Constitution and this election process. They are pushing that forward while the right doesn't stand together and do anything. They all bitch and complain together, but they don't stand up and do something together. So before I play the Joe Biden, and I hope that sinks in, by the way. I hope you're seeing exactly what I'm talking about. Before I play the Joe Biden sound bites, I want to just tell you about, there was a guy that came up there today, and I completely blank out on his name here. But this was after the speech was over. This was after everybody had bought in books and signed the books and talked to people on an individual basis. And a guy comes up and he starts talking. He has a mask on. And he's wearing all black. I get nervous around people wearing all black now. I do, because I don't know if they're going to try to do something. I mean, if somebody looks like a leftist, I shouldn't say worried. I get ready for potential action if they're going to do something. And I wish this guy was here, because he and his wife both, they were great people, but man, did they fit the profile for, somebody who's on the left who might start trouble. So it makes sense too, because he told me, they started the conversation, asking me what it was all about. And so I told him about the book and who I am. And he said, it's interesting because I voted for Hillary Clinton. This is his words. He said, I voted for Hillary Clinton in the last election. And when he said that, I was like, okay, where are we going here? Where are we going here? And he says, well, when Donald Trump got elected, I bought into all the things that everybody was saying, that he should stay away from the nuclear codes, that he's gonna cause nuclear war and he's gonna destroy this country. And he said that because he's not brainwashed, he was indoctrinated like all the rest of us, and so he thought liberal was the way to go and the Democrat Party was the way to go. But as Donald Trump's presidency carried on, he really started to respect who the president was. Because he's a financial guy, and he was saying that the president keeps succeeding. He does all these things right, and he never gets credit for it. And then he said, while everybody else is saying that they don't like his tweets and when he thinks somebody's stupid, how he tells them they're stupid, but he liked that. He said that's the way it is in the banking world. You're not gonna put $100 million on the line for political correctness. And so they have to be blunt. And all these things came out, and he was changed. And now he sees the reality of what's happening in this country. It's another success story of not only the president, but of it's a success story of people who don't allow themselves to be indoctrinated to a point that they are zombies, that they are robots. And that's kind of the problem. Young people are indoctrinated, and they're too, I don't want to use the word innocent, but naive not to buy into it. And then they do. And then their entire opinion is formulated by the furtherance of that indoctrination. They just don't think for themselves. So it was very nice to meet this guy and his wife. If you guys listen to this, I apologize that I don't remember your names. I met a lot of people tonight, but you do stand out in my memory, and I pray for people like this because he's a sounding board. He's definitely a sounding board for reality in this country, and this is the front line. So, as I get into the Joe Biden sound bites, I picked two of them. I mean, if you're liberal and you're listening to this, and I just told you a story about the guy, you need to listen to these sound bites, because I don't want you to vote for President Trump because Joe Biden is an idiot and a weirdo and has dementia. I mean, if that's what you got to base it on, that's fine, but you should look at the record of success by the president. You should. And it makes it where you're not even contemplating voting for Joe Biden. Unfortunately, that's not what people who've been brainwashed will do, though. So I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. I'm going to play the sound bites for you. And I mean, it just pushes us home. It's I don't know how, except for pure using Joe Biden as a puppet to do what the Democrat Party wants, which is probably the case. I don't see how that guy is the candidate for president of the United States on the Democrat Party. Even the organized leftists in the Democrat Party, how are they using this guy out of everybody? Should just put somebody else up that would stood a better chance and can lie, versus somebody who it just has dementia and really doesn't have a lot of chance of getting elected. I don't like to say that because you never know, they could trick this and he gets elected, but I mean, he's the least electable person out there. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's one other person, Kamala Harris, and they're both on a ticket. Strange. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. If you're listening to this show, which I guess you are because you got to this point, well, I got to tell you about my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness in Attack Survival. It's a bestseller, folks, and there's a reason why. This book shows you how to divide your life into sectors and then target each sector from the attacker's point of view. Now, what does that mean? Well, attackers look at certain things in your life. They look, if they want to get something from you, that critical asset that they want, then they're going to look for critical areas where it's most vulnerable. They're going to look for critical times where it's most vulnerable. they're going to try to identify those vulnerabilities for that, and then they'll determine their avenue of approach based on that. And once you learn that's how they target, you can do the target packages on yourself in each sector of your life, your business, your city, your school, your church, whatever. You divide it up into these sectors and target each one. Once you have that, you can turn around and build better defenses, plans of action, and mitigation strategies for when you have to go somewhere or just in your daily life. Now, for the children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. They have lesson plans for it at teamlittlebigs.com. The pictures have the lessons in there, built into the pictures, and the parents or teachers get the lesson plans at teamlittlebigs.com. It's for young children 2 to 8 and also learning disabled children as well. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and the bestseller Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and its 2 workbooks. This is how you secure your homeland. Let's get back to the show. All right, now, with that little plug out of the way, and as I said, my finger's slipping down here on this little switch here, I want to play these Joe Biden sound bites. Now, the first one is about medical care, and let me pull this back here, and I'm going to have to pull this up again. So this is about health care, and the question's about health care, and he gets upset in this, but, you never really know if Joe Biden's really upset. He's such an actor and a liar. But I will tell you, I haven't seen him. No, none of us have seen him in quite some time. He looks awful. I mean, go on YouTube and pull these sound bites up. He looks terrible, and he's slow. I mean, he is really, I'm not just saying this because I'm a, Trump supporter. I mean, this guy looks like he is not in good health or in good mind. He's very decrepit looking, and I give him a year before it really starts to hit on him. It's pretty bad. So let's listen to this in its entirety. It's 3 minutes long, and it starts off with the Anderson Cooper. Anyway, weirdo.
I want you to meet Kristen Szymanski. She works for a family-owned chocolate manufacturing company in Dunmore. She's a Democrat. Kristen, welcome.
Good evening. My mother was diagnosed with multiple myeloma 2 years ago at the age of 66. The cost of her care has been astronomical. However, my family has been fortunate that both she and my father had long careers at good companies that afforded them the opportunity to save for retirement, which is helping to pay for her care. Mr. Vice President, what is your plan to make health care affordable so Americans don't need to drain their savings when care is necessary?
First of all, in the middle of this pandemic, what's the president doing? He's in federal court, trying to do away with the Affordable Care Act. 100 million people with pre-existing conditions like your mom would not have to pay more for their insurance under now. But guess what happens if in fact, he wins? That's number one. Number two, what I would do is make sure that we reinstate the Affordable Care Act, number one, and add a public option to that Affordable Care Act so that nobody in the United States of America would go without being able to be covered for what they need. With regard to COVID, for example, I don't want to get my son died of cancer. He came home from Iraq, and I have to tell you, it really, really offended me when he volunteered to go there for a year.
I have no idea what he's talking about. No idea. But it's Joe Biden, so here, we'll keep going.
And he came home because of with stage 4 glioblastoma. And the president referred to guys like my son. He won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, referred to them as losers. Losers. Talk about losers. My point is this.
Okay, first of all, that's a lie that the president never said that, and he's lying right there on stage, and it's an act. And then he gets lost in his lies because he's of this dementia. I mean, you can see where he's struggling to tell a lie. It's not like he's struggling to tell the truth. He's struggling to tiptoe himself through this because that's what he does. He's a performer. and it's a horrific performance. I'll keep going here.
The idea that healthcare is debated as whether or not it's a right or a privilege. It's an absolute right. And so we have to make sure, particularly in the moment of COVID, that any costs relating to COVID are in fact free. The federal government guarantees be taken care of. One of the reasons why people aren't going in and getting tested is they're afraid of the bill they're going to receive. They're afraid of what's going to happen. And with your mom, it's a different, multiple myeloma is a difficult disease to care for. And that's why one of the things I've done, well, anyway, I'm going on too much about cancer. I apologize, but
I mean, that's what the question was about. You see, I mean, listen, if you're like me, you're listening to this question, to this answer. There's no sense to this question. It's just an odd, rambling answer.
One of the things that I strongly believe is we have to be in a position where we provide for all the research and all the effort to deal with cancer. And look, we can beat this disease, but we have to invest significant amounts of money, billions of dollars to do it. And it can be done. It can be done.
Okay. That question literally went nowhere. And there's another question that is asked here in a second. And it has to do with law enforcement. I'm going to have to see if I can find it here. But I'm at a loss for words. Listen to this. I'm at a loss for words. It's just that bad. And if you understand the answer that he just gave, please, I beg you, write me on social media and explain it to me, because, you know, I have 2 degrees and I've been trained by the government on investigation, and I have no clue what he was just saying. None. Let me see if I can find this other video, this other sound bite here. Hold on one second. Okay, so here it is, and there is, this is one of the people I was talking about. The people that are behind her, like 15, 20 feet behind her, the microphone is 3 feet away from her, and she's still wearing a mask. I did a video yesterday joking around these masks and the way they're being band-aided. It's just ridiculous, and it's another thing if the people stood up together. Like I was saying in New York, if every restaurant owner got together and said, we're all opening our restaurants, or if every gym opened and all the people who are members there went to those gyms, every single gym, and filled them up, there's literally nothing that they could do. I mean, they may arrest one person here, one person there, but if the people just stood together, they could stop it. Anyway, listen to this.
Hello, Vice President Biden.
Hello, Vice President Biden. That's what it sounds like.
Black parents across America need to know, how much different will the talk be with our sons and daughters about police interaction under your administration?
So let's just break down that question, okay? She's saying, how much different? Let's just play that question again, because this has got to be one of the dumbest questions I've ever heard in my life. Right off the bat, she's asking, she's asking Joe Biden, a white guy, about her family, who I guess are black, and what their conversation is going to be about law enforcement. She's asking Joe Biden what he thinks her conversation is going to be.
Hello, Vice President Biden.
All right, Mayor.
Black.
Listen to him again. I would never laugh at anybody who has dementia, except somebody that I know is a liar and who's trying to lie with dementia.
Hello, Vice President Biden.
All right, Mayor.
Black parents across America need to know, how much different will the talk be with our sons and daughters about police interaction under your administration?
That question makes no sense whatsoever. And she's so confident about it behind her mask. I mean, how does she, this is her one shot to be on TV, national television, and she wears a mask and there's nobody around her. And the question is just ridiculously stupid. So now Joe Biden's supposed to tell her what the conversation is going to be around her dinner table under his administration.
It'll be fundamentally different, but let me make it clear.
Okay, I guess
One of the things people say,
I guess he knows what it's going to be like in her home, because there's really no answer to this. But I guess he says it's going to be fundamentally different.
know I understand. As my mother would say, come walk in my shoes for a mile and tell me you understand then. Very few white
Okay. This is so difficult to listen to. Listen at the beginning of his answer. First of all, I got to hear that again when she asks the question. Hold on.
Black parents across America need to know, how much different will the talk be with our sons and daughters about police interaction under your administration?
It'll be fundamentally different, but let me make it clear. One of the things people say, I know I understand, as my mother would say, come walk in my shoes for a mile.
I guess his mom was from Wisconsin because he said shoes. But this makes no sense. She's asking a question about her family and the conversation that they'll have. He's talking about come and walk in his shoes.
Tell me you understand then. Very few white parents have to turn and say to their kid, once they get their license, make sure if you're pulled over, put both hands on top of the wheel.
Okay, first of all, let me just break this down for you, okay? If you get pulled over, this is what you should do. And mark my words on it, whatever law enforcement officer walks up to your car is going to, they may not thank you for it, but they're going to thank you for it, not maybe outwardly, but they'll be glad that you did this. If you have 4 windows in your car, roll all the windows down. Put your hands out of the car. Take them off the steering wheel. I don't believe in that, putting your hands on the steering wheel. You put your hands out the window where the law enforcement can see them. Even turn your palms towards them. And as they approach the car and they can see in your car, say, I have no weapons in the car. And if you have a weapon and it's legal, you say, I have a weapon with me. I have a license to carry the weapon. Or if you live in Colorado, you just say, I got a gun with me. That's your license, the Second Amendment in the Constitution. And you say, and the weapon is over here. You tell them where it's at. And law enforcement, when they see that, they're going to know that you're a sane person. They're going to know that you're not wanting to inflate the situation. And they see you taking action to show them that there's no threat. You show them that there's no threat, then they're going to lower, they're not going to, hopefully they won't lower their awareness, but it'll definitely put them in the state of mind that they're dealing with a rational, sane person. And that makes the job so much easier for a cop. Any cop out there that disagrees with me that that's the way that people should act, you definitely don't think outside the box, and you definitely have not thought of the alternative of coming up there. When somebody has their hand on the wheel, their hands are still in the car, and they can reach down if the gun is right next to them very quickly. So it'd be better for you to roll all your windows down, stick your hands out the window. If you can turn them around where your palms are facing the officer, that's the way you should do it. Be very polite and say, I have a gun, or I don't have a gun. It's right here, or I just don't have one. My license and stuff is in my back pocket. What would you like me to do? But the fact is, it doesn't matter if you're white or black. I'm telling you, I've been a cop. I pulled people over. I've also been an FBI agent and an air marshal. When I dealt with people, I was not looking at the color of their skin. I was looking at their actions, and I'm looking at their hands. Unless it was a case of like, I thought they were drinking and I was a cop, then I would be looking at their eyes and their hands. But the hands are where the threat is. Okay. So if you are white and a law enforcement officer walks up there and you're wanting to go toe to toe with this cop, you're going to get the same treatment as if you were black, and it's not going to end well. I don't care if you're Mexican or you're black or you're Japanese or you're white or Norwegian. If you try to fight the cops or you smart off, when you get pulled over, bad things are going to happen. You're going to dig your own hole. So this racist statement that Joe Biden is making in the beginning of this is incompetent, makes no sense, and he, again, is a liar with dementia, and he's just telling people what they want to hear. That's it. It's funny because they pan the camera back while he's answering his question. She's standing there, and there's literally no one within 20, 25 feet of her, and she still has a mask on. Here you go. Let's play just what he started with.
Very few white parents have to turn and say to their kid, once they get their license, make sure if you're pulled over, put both hands on top of the wheel.
So he's saying very few white parents have to do that. So if it was really truly a racist thing out there that cops are racist, why would any white parent have to tell their kids anything?
Don't reach for the glove box. Make sure you do whatever the police officer says.
I mean, that's the case with anyone. Color makes no difference. A cop walks up and you reach over and grab the glove box. It could potentially end with your life being snuffed out by a bullet.
The vast majority of police are decent, honorable people.
Yeah, about 100% of them. Well, let's say 99.999%.
One of the things I've found is the only people who don't like bad cops more than we don't like them are police officers. And so
just the comments in this guy.
what we have to do is we have to have a much more transparent means by which we provide for accountability within police departments.
Okay. We do not provide accountability for police departments. They provide accountability for the department. That would be the department. So he's talking about now he's gone from, she asked a question about what is the conversation with our family and our children going to be like under your presidency, which, again, makes no sense whatsoever. He then starts talking about walk a mile in my shoes, and then he equates that somehow to white people. Most white people don't have to tell their kids, don't reach for the glove box, as though I guess other white people can reach for the glove box and that's okay. And now here he goes down this road.
President of the United States, what I will do, I will nationally bring together police chiefs, police officers, the union people, the African-American leadership, the communities, the brown communities, the civil rights leaderships, to sit at a table.
Okay, so sit at a table is not going to do anything because the civil rights leaders today are not like the civil rights leaders in the 60s. The civil rights leaders today, the majority of them are racist, and I'm talking about black people. They're racist, and they're leftist. So their idea of sitting down at a table is going to be my way or the highway. How do I know that? Because I sat with Tamika Mallory. She's like a little chihuahua that just tries to scream louder than anybody in the room. That's how they work. So not going to work. Police chiefs, and as we've seen, sheriffs and attorney generals and prosecutors around this country are becoming left because the left has figured out that that's where they need to have people in a position of power. So you're going to have activists that are racist and that are leftists show up and sit down at a table with chiefs of police that are leftist or incompetent, because that's the other thing. People that are incompetent get promoted because they're only promoting people these days based on color. And I'm not talking about because they're white. If somebody is black, they can get promoted much easier, even if they're a terrible cop, especially if they're a black female. Seems to be all the rage now. Instead of looking and saying, wow, this individual is a great leader, they're the go-to person, they understand how the department works, let's get them up here because they can make things happen and clean up the city or the town, and they can affect change where change is needed and make sure that things stay the same where it needs to stay the same. That's not how they choose leaders in law enforcement anymore.
Agree on basic fundamental things that have to be done, including much more rigorous background checks on those who apply for and become police officers.
See that again, she's shaking her head in agreement. That's a bullshit statement. That means nothing because trust me, in law enforcement, your background checks are pretty extensive. I do believe that law enforcement should start using the polygraph. I hate the polygraph, but it is the polygraph machine in and of itself is not how these polygraphers determine whether you're a liar or not. It's your actions and your behavior and your statements. So I do believe in that. And it's interesting because in the FBI, we get polygraphed every 5 years, but police officers that come from the JTTF, that means they're just from the local departments or state or federal, or not federal police, but for the local or state police departments, they don't have to go through a polygraph to be sitting in the same chair as FBI agents on the same floor. And they don't have to go through that. And then they're given secret information. It's a terrible way that they're doing this stuff. But overall, they have a background check done. You're not going to improve much with these background checks that they wouldn't have seen in any other case with these bad officers. What would have changed is not the background check or how you change it. It's not the background check. It's if you identify problems with these individuals, you get rid of them. You get rid of them, you fire them. But just like teachers across the country, they don't do that. And mainly because they're hiring people based on quotas. And then who ends up recruiting and working the recruitment and testing? The same idiots that were recruited before for the wrong reasons.
2, teaching people how to de-escalate. 3, providing for 911 calls like what happened in Lancaster, making sure that you have psychologists and psychiatrists available to go out to deal with those circumstances.
Now, I could play you sound bites that show you the reality of Compton and the inner city, but I'm not going to play this one particular soundbite. You can go to YouTube and look up Compton police shooting video witnesses react, or just Compton, LA witnesses reaction. And you just put that in, it's going to come up. And this is bystanders that are watching when the cop got shot. The 2 cops got shot in Compton in LA, and then how they get out of the car, and the guy's filming it, and it's unbelievable. Nothing that they do, bringing out a psychologist, is going to change the way these people feel. They've been indoctrinated. They've been taught learned helplessness. They're nasty, vile people. Yes, many of the people who live in Compton and in the inner city are nasty, vile people. They hate the police, and there's nothing anyone's going to do to come in there. A psychologist is going to change anything with these people. These are violent people when it comes to dealing with law enforcement. You watch this video, you'll see it for yourself. I've worked in the 7-5 precinct in New York City, which is the worst precinct, one of the worst in the United States. I'll tell you this story real quick and you'll understand. Remember, Joe Biden, what he was saying there a second ago is that they need to bring out psychologists and with them in the field. One time we were following somebody when I was in the FBI. I'm not going to go into what the case was about. And it was in the 7-5 precinct. And I drove, actually, was this in the 7-5? Might have been the 8-8, but it was in one of the bad areas. And I drove, because when you're doing a static surveillance, somebody's not moving, only a certain amount of people can be on what we call the eye, right? So it wasn't my turn on the eye, so I find a place to park close by, and I'm in a Tahoe. It's got blacked out windows. I pull up next to where there's a church, and I park next to it. Vehicle still running, and I've got gear on. I've got all my gear on because people we were following were very violent. And I have my body armor on. It says FBI across the front of it. And I'm sitting there. Of course, I'm in tinted windows in this Tahoe. And I look to the left as I pull up, and there's a bunch of young guys out on the stoop of their house. And a car rolls up, and I'm very aware of what's happening. And the car drives away, and it looked like the one guy who was the loudest, with the loudest mouth, he walks towards my Tahoe. At that point, I unholstered my gun, and I'm sitting here, and he walks towards the Tahoe. He gets about 4 feet from the window, and then he turns to the right, which is towards the back of my Tahoe. He walks backwards. I'm watching him in the mirror. Now, again, I'm watching his hands, because I'm always looking at hands. That's where the threat's coming from. But I'm also having to look at these people over here that are on the stoop. I should have pulled off at that point, but I'm still watching because I don't know what he's up to. And he walks back about 25 feet behind the Tahoe, and then he walks at a fast pace back up to where the driver's window is. And he's now like 3 feet from the Tahoe as he walks up. I roll my window down because he was coming towards the window, and I have my gun up, and I told him, you get the F away from my vehicle right now. Now, again, I have FBI all over it. What do you think this guy did? He literally stepped towards my gun where it was almost pressed into his chest. And he says, "What the F are you going to do? Shoot me?" I'm still watching his hands. I told him to back up. He takes a step back. I put my vehicle in drive, and I drive. Or I already had it in drive. I just drove off. And then I radioed everybody else, "Don't go into this area. It's hot over here." So when Joe Biden's talking about bringing psychologists out, that's what you're dealing with. That is what you're dealing with. It's probably the second time, one of two times when I was in law enforcement, where I can truly say that I was just about to shoot this guy. If he had pulled, I shouldn't say two times, there's been several times, but this time really stood out. His actions just said he was going to do something. If he had even presented a weapon anywhere on his body when he walked up and I rolled the window down, I would have shot him. Because I'm in an area where cops have been shot before, and this guy was clearly concerned that I was there and wanting me out of there. And the aggressive mood he made towards me, if he had secreted a gun, I would have shot him. Because I felt as though there was an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury to myself at that point. So, would a psychologist help in that case? No, not at all. If that guy was in a fight with somebody else, another gang member, is a psychologist going to help? No. It's going to complicate issues. Really, we should just throw lawyers out there and let them duel it out. That's what I think.
We can change. We started that process before. I'm confident it can work again and again.
We've never started that. I have no idea what process he's talking about started.
Without vilifying, there's bad cops, there's bad police officers, there's bad senators, there's bad congressmen, there's bad docs. There's people who aren't meeting standards in every single solitary profession. And I'm confident the vast majority of the police are prepared to sit down in the White House in a commission like Barack and I started to begin to sit down and lay out what the minimum basic requirements are and what is out of bounds, period.
It makes no sense. His answers make no sense. This is what I hate about politicians, especially ones with dementia. No, he didn't lay out anything. It's just a bunch of rambling mess. If somebody asked me that question, first of all, I would say it's a terrible question. I can't tell you. See, none of this stuff has anything to do with what she asked. I would have told her right away, please, I'll give you a second. Reformulate your question, because I cannot tell you, no matter what I do as President of the United States, I cannot tell you what the conversation is going to be at your dinner table with your children. That's up to you. That's up to your children. I don't understand the question. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I'm not going to give you an answer about effective solutions to problems that may or may not exist if you are not asking me a question that makes any sense. So I'll give you a second. Go ahead. Put your mask wherever you want and rethink this whole thing. Maybe you need some more air. All right, let's go listen to some more.
Including the ability for us to be able to go in and look at pattern and practice of police departments so they're completely transparent.
Mr. Vice President.
His question it didn't answer anything. It didn't get to anything. He didn't show that he had any solutions. Again, if I was running for president, and right now I could tell you right now some of the things that I would do. I haven't really given this too much thought, but because I have been in law enforcement, I would tell you right away. First thing we're going to do, is work on the long game. And how do we do that? We start recruiting for the right reasons, not because of quotas of skin color. We're going to start being colorblind in law enforcement, except where the color of someone's skin can be used as a descriptor to identify a witness, a criminal, or a victim, where it's important that we have physical descriptions. Other than that, we're not going to hire people. We're going to do away with hiring people based on skin color. We're going to start hiring people based on qualifications. So recruitment is the very first thing we'll change. The second thing that will change is leadership. We'll start pushing for people to be in leadership that have real experience. When I say experience, that have shown that they understand what law enforcement is there for. that show that they're the people that understand how a department should work, that show how to train fellow officers, how to be there for fellow officers, how to deal with criminals, how to deal with victims, and how to deal with witnesses. We want to take those people and we want to promote them so that they can affect positive change, and so that they can ensure that when action is needed, it's the correct action. That's the second thing. Third thing, change the training. Start using technologies that are out there. Airsoft fields, for instance. Airsoft fields, they have hundreds of guns. You could take entire precincts of people, rotate them in and out on a monthly basis, and go there for the price of an airsoft game. And you can have your officers go through and do room clearings over and over and literally refresh, or in most cases, teach them tactics. And you can use military people that are on the job to do these tactics. That way you can start reducing the amount of money, which is the fourth thing, reducing the amount of money that goes to SWAT, and start using that money to build law enforcement officers that are fully qualified to be doing the job and work together as a team, as an assault group and a blocking force. And I could get into that more. You see, that's an answer. I'm giving you solutions to the problem. This guy gives you, and I'm sorry I keep using this statement, and I don't know why I keep saying this, but he's giving you bullshit answers that get to nothing. Because that's what politicians do. They don't answer the questions with any solutions. They answer the questions with rhetoric. And it's a science how they do it. I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually, when you listen to them. They can talk for 10 minutes and answer nothing. Let's listen to what else he has to say about nothing.
Bob Woodward asked President Trump about white privilege and whether...
Bob Woodward, an idiot. Go ahead, Anderson, speaking of idiots.
Whether or not he benefited from it. And the president said, no, I don't feel that way at all, and sort of mocked Bob Woodward. Do you see ways that you've benefited from white privilege?
Sure, I've benefited just because I don't have to go through what my black brothers and sisters have had to go through, number one.
I mean, these questions are ridiculous. This whole thing about white privilege, trust me, folks, I grew up with nothing. We had nothing. Who I am and what I am is because of hard work. Look, I'm not on the Trump victory tour. I'm not on any type of Republican paid group. I'm not getting handouts from people, although I might start another GoFundMe page to help me continue to do what I'm doing. But that'd be up to you guys to send money to that. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm doing it because I have a hardworking ethic, and I see what's going on with this country, and I'm getting out on the road. There's no white privilege there. It's the same thing that helped me become a Navy SEAL, the first college graduate in my family. It helped me get through high school. It helped me get through the FBI Academy. Hard work, understanding of what I wanted, and a drive forward to get that. There's nothing about why. Nobody gave me a handout. But yet these people are going to ask these stupid questions, racist questions, and this guy's going to entertain it because it's an act.
Number two, grow up here in Scranton. We're used to guys that look down their nose at us.
He's talking about like he was one of the guys from the other side of the tracks. And the other thing, he's slurring his words. All through this, slurring his words.
Look to people who look at us and think that we're suckers. Look at us and they think that we're not equivalent to them.
He must be talking about corn pop, I guess. I guess he's talking about corn pop. I don't know.
If you didn't have a college degree, you must be stupid. If, in fact, you didn't get to go to an Ivy school. Well, I tell you what bothered me, to tell you the truth. Maybe it's my Scranton roots. I don't know. But when you guys started talking on television about Biden, if he wins, will be the first person without an Ivy League degree to be elected president, I'm thinking, who the hell makes you think I have to have an Ivy League degree to be president?
Well, he definitely didn't have to have an Ivy League degree to lie for 40 years to sit in a Senate seat. That's for sure. I don't have an Ivy League degree. I agree. Listen, this is the one thing I agree with him on, even though he's rambling. I think that Ivy League schools are one of the biggest problems in this nation, because if you go to Harvard, people just give you positions. You want to talk about a privilege. It's called rich privilege. Ivy League schools pump out people, and big companies and tech companies and the political parties hire these people or push them forward. And they get these silver bullets. Look at Obama. Look at what in the heck? I forget the guy's name. Look at the majority of these people. All right, look at them and look at their resumes, and that's exactly what you're going to see. That's what differentiates Donald Trump from all this. Donald Trump graduated from a great college, but then he had to work his way. He's raised his kids the same way. That's why they are who they are. He had to work his way into a position, fail and succeed, succeed, and that's the way he learned. He proved himself. All right, let's keep going.
I really mean it. I found my backup. No.
But the other thing I was going to say about the Ivy League schools is that, Ben Sasse, that's the other guy. Look at his resume. Who is Ben Sasse? How did he get to the position of where he's at? And just a freaking bing, bang, boom. These people don't prove themselves. There's no proving. They just graduate an Ivy League school, and next thing you know, they're a senator. There's no work in when it comes to Ivy League school. Every single one, okay. Every single federal law and I would have to say probably a lot of state and local laws, but every single federal law that has injured this country has been written by an Ivy League school graduate. Think about that. Meanwhile, you go back in history and you look at the greatest achievements throughout history. Most of those achievements were created by normal people who had a drive forward and an education. Or in most cases throughout history, they didn't even have an education. They just were driven.
I'm not joking. Like guys like me were the first in my family to go to college. Up here, my dad busted his neck. My dad came up here, worked here, lost his job like a lot of people did here. There used to be a bad joke in the 60s in Scranton. No one's in Scranton, everybody's from Scranton because so many people lost their jobs. We are as good as anybody else. And guys like Trump who inherited everything.
Remember, he's talking about, the question was about white privilege, right? There's nothing he's talking about white privilege here, okay?
And squandered what they inherited are the people that I've always had a problem with, not the people who are busting their neck.
Let me ask you, President Trump signed...
A lot of people busting their necks. I've busted my neck. I had to have neck surgery. I fell out of a helicopter. It started then onto the deck of a ship off the coast of Panama, but... a lot of busted necks here with Joe Biden's family and friends.
The First Step Act, which advocates for criminal justice reform, think is a good start in reforming the criminal justice system. Why should voters believe that you are the right person to build on that legislation, given that in the administration you had with President Obama, you guys weren't able to get a First Step Act?
Well, guess what? We proposed the First Step Act, and what we did was, in our administration, there are 38,000 fewer federal prisoners than there were when we started our administration.
That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything at all.
We moved to eliminate the disparity between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. So a black guy getting a nickel bag and snorting coke went mandatory to jail. Someone who did a line in Park Avenue got arrested. They got probation.
Listen, that probably is the case, right? Because rich people, I tell you, there is rich people privilege. But the way he's talking about cocaine, I mean, if I was explaining that, and I was explaining that as somebody who's running for office, I would explain it the same way as somebody who's been in law enforcement. I'm not going to talk about some guy buying a nickel bag and another person who's sniffing it. It almost sounds like he's explaining it like somebody who has bought a nickel bag or somebody who sniffed cocaine, right? I don't know why he decided to use those analogies, but it's interesting.
And so we've tried to change. There have been mistakes made. We've made significant changes, and we'll make more. But look at what he's done. Look at where we are.
Who's he? Is he talking about Obama? The question wasn't about Obama. The question is about him.
Refuse to do the kinds of things that need to be done.
It's talking about Trump. Okay. Now, thank you for clarifying that, Dementia Joe.
To fundamentally change the criminal justice system, including making sure that there's equal application of justice.
President Trump has done a tremendous amount of things with it. I actually met two guys that because of Trump got out of prison. They were wrongly convicted and he pardoned them. Incredible guys. And they love Trump. Trust me on that. I mean, they were innocent. They were innocent at the time. So, in the whole time that they spent in prison, it was a long time. But you see, none of the answers that he just gave answered anything. It didn't answer anything at all.
This is Bill Barrett. He's a retired police chief of Wilkes-Barre and a member of the Wilkes-Barre City Council. He's a Democrat. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Chief, didn't I meet you?
Here's a Democrat chief, okay? So if he's a Democrat, he's a chief of police, I can guarantee you he's worthless. I can guarantee you that he is going to abide by the leftist ideology of running things, which is to appease the criminals. That's what he's going to do. And I can guarantee you working under this individual is a nightmare as a cop. You're watching everything you do. You're tiptoeing on your eggshells. And this guy in recruitment under him and the people that get promoted under him are going to be more and more leftist. That's the way it would work.
When you were chief?
We did, sir.
That's what I thought. Looking at you like I know.
Good evening, Vice President
Good
Biden, Anderson. As mentioned, as retired police chief, I am very concerned about the violence taking place in our cities across this country, and especially
that it is being allowed to happen because of leftists like yourself there, Chief.
Concerned about the lack of respect shown towards law enforcement officers and military. Can you tell us what your plan is for addressing this situation and bringing our nation back together, sir?
Now, again, this whole thing is so scripted, it's unbelievable. This guy was probably chosen because he's a leftist Democrat who was a chief. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know him, but I'm going on the statistics of how I've gone around the country, and that's what I'm seeing. It's very prevalent right now.
First of all, violent protesting is one thing. A right to speak is one thing. Violence of any kind, no matter who it is coming from, is wrong, and people should be held accountable. Burning down automobile lots, smashing windows.
Yeah, a lot of those automobile lots have been burnt down.
Buildings on fire. But here's the deal. I've condemned every form of violence, no matter what the source is. No matter what the source is. The president has yet to condemn, as you've probably noticed, the far right and the white supremacists and those. Okay.
This far right and far left, I did a whole show on that, is nonsense, okay? The progressives, which on a political scale are left, they have a definite and distinct ideology. They're collective. They are very organized. You can literally point to them and say, this is how they feel, this is how they act, this is what their behavior is going to be, and this is what their political leaning, and this is how they believe in fixing or the rhetoric that they spill out there. When it comes to what they call white supremacists, and then they push them to the far right, it doesn't fit. Right? White supremacy is a separatist. They are not conservative as per se. They may have conservative values. Heck, some of them may have liberal values. You never really know. Cop haters are cop haters. You look at some of these groups that they say are white supremacists. The only thing that differentiates them from Black Lives Matter is the fact that they're white. Well, most of the people in Black Lives Matter are white too, but that they are not for Biden. They hate cops. So a lot of these people that they say are white supremacists may be white supremacists, but they're not on the right. They're not right as far on the far right and conservative and good people, which the majority of people are on the right. Remember, as I said, the left, you can identify the whole group and predict how they're going to act by what they believe in their history of how they act. On the right, you may have a group of white supremacists that say they are conservative, but their whole ideology sets them completely it's not to the right or the left. They're like skewed off there north or south. They're not even close to being part of the conservative group or constitutionalist people in this country. Not even close.
Guys walking around with the AK-47s and not doing a damn thing about them. This is absolutely, look, his own former press secretary.
Okay. we'll get to your answer here in a second there, Joe. They talk about the president as though he has the ability to police these states. Now, as we've seen, this is a very important point here. As we've seen with all these riots, it's a big leap to get federal troops to come out there and do something, because politically, if something goes wrong, it's going to hamstring him from getting reelected. But overall, the way the founding fathers set things up is that the power would be with the states to rule the states. They're trying to make it sound like Donald Trump is responsible for all these bad things that are happening. It is governors and it's mayors.
Kellyanne Conway said, I'm paraphrasing, chaos and violence are good for our administration. They're good for us.
Okay. First of all, he's quoting or paraphrasing something that was said by Rahm Emanuel, that no crisis should go to waste. I don't know what he's talking about Kellyanne Conway saying this. Kellyanne Conway would never say something stupid like this. It's taken completely out of context. I don't know the quote, but I can guarantee you, based on listening to her for years, that would not come out of her mouth, not in the way that he's saying it.
President talks about in Joe Biden's America. I got to remind him, he may be really losing it. He's president. I'm not the president. This
He's trying to make it sound like the president's crazy or that he has dementia. Oh, my Lord.
Donald Trump's America. Do you feel safer in Donald Trump's America when he incites these kinds of things?
The president hasn't incited any riots. There's no riots that have grown out of protest because of this president. Just another outright lie.
The idea is it's wrong no matter what the source is, where it comes from. I condemn it all, and people should be held accountable. But folks, I'm waiting for the day when he says, I condemn all those white supremacists. I condemn those militia guys.
He has said that. Why are you mixing militia in with the white supremacists? People have the right to form a militia in this country. I don't know how these people on the left milk those people together. Are there people who call themselves a militia that may be white supremacists? Could be. But I'm telling you, the entire time I was in the FBI, literally, I never really came across a white supremacy case. Now, they were out there, and I know that a lot of these groups that are out there were being watched, and there were certain cases, but they were very small cases. They didn't have anything to do with overthrowing the government. They weren't out there trying to riot, and in most cases, they didn't want to bring attention to themselves, except for the few idiots that actually, there were certain groups, but by and large, what I have seen, and this wasn't from any investigation I've seen, this is literally from watching TV, they don't make the amount of waves that you see on the left. Not even close, because the numbers aren't there. I mean, half this country is far left. I don't know if they realize it, but they're far left, and they're organized. These people are like they're small groups of people.
As much as I do every other organizational structure. And by the way, Chief, when you put that badge on and you walk out the door, you have a right to come home to your family safely, period.
So he likes to say a lot of these things about rights and these things. Listen, again, as a law enforcement officer, I have no right to come home. The Constitution doesn't say that if you put a badge and gun on, you have the right to come home. You don't. You take that job knowing that the potential is that you may not come home. It's the excitement of the job. And you're actually serving. Some of us are drawn to service, but there's no right that says that you should come home. Same thing with skydiving. You jump out of a plane, there's no constitutional right that says your parachute's going to open and you should go home. You take the risk and you accept the potential, and you're responsible for that yourself. It's your responsibility. I didn't know this soundbite was going to be so long, but man. And they... I'm sorry I keep laughing through the show. This reminds me of the Billy Madison. I wish I could play the sound bites on here. I don't know what would get this show pulled, but the Billy Madison sound bite where he tells the story about the little dog that could, and if you haven't seen the movie, it's kind of stupid, but and there's anyway, long story short, there's no real answer. The guy rambles for 5 minutes, and then the other guy, the principal, says everything that you said has made us dumber, basically. That's what this answer was. It doesn't do, and people clap.
A lot of protesters have called for defunding police. This summer, murder rates in some big cities have shot up. Chicago murders are up 52% so far.
Democrat
New York
City.
Up 23%.
Democrat
Los Angeles
City.
up 15%.
Democrat City.
There are a lot of people who worry about a breakdown of law and order in this country. Are you?
How about people who are worried about law and order breaking down in cities that are ran by Democrats?
One of them?
I'm worried that as long as the administration continues to preach hate and division, talking about people in ways they talk about them, that I am worried. But here's the deal. We're in a situation in the United States where, by the way, in our administration, violent crime went down 15%. We didn't have to worry about protecting public buildings. We were able to do it without sending in.
Because the left is the one attacking the buildings. I mean, this is crazy. I don't really, we've only got a few minutes left here. I really don't even want to waste it on this. I'll play
Military.
a little bit more.
Do you ever think you'd see a day? You can't answer me, I know. But ever think you'd see a day when
What does that mean? That he can't answer it, I guess, because he's doing the interview. Again, this is rambling.
6 4-star generals walked away from this president.
Who were all
Several of them
leftists.
said they were ashamed
Because they're
of how he
leftists.
conducted himself.
And they're
The president who
leftists.
stands out there when people are peacefully protesting in front of the White House.
No, they were not.
No violence whatsoever.
As soon as they gave pushback on them, frozen water bottles came out, which means they were planning the action. They knew they were going to get pushed, and that's when they hassled the police and threw frozen water bottles like throwing a brick at somebody. Okay,
He gets the military to go in, put tear gas,
and nothing happened.
move people, physically move them out of the way so he can walk across to a Protestant church and hold a Bible upside down. I wonder if he ever opened.
So see, this whole thing has nothing to do with anything. This is talking points that he's just spilling out. This guy just spills talking points. He just rambles talking points. I think that's enough. I mean, I can't listen anymore. It doesn't really get any better from there. All right. Listen, before I end the show, I want you to make sure that you go to connectzing.com. I haven't been posting on there a lot lately because I've been traveling. But I want you to make sure that you go and join connectzing.com. October 1st, something's going to change on Facebook. We all got warnings about it. I don't know what's going to happen. But that is where my good buddy Drago came up with this. He was a Navy SEAL. He spent time in a Polish socialist prison before he came to the United States and became a SEAL. He's an incredible guy. He's now a computer programmer, and he's created this social media dominant type of a platform that you can go on, and it's very user-friendly, but it needs funding, and we're working on getting funding for him so that he can take this to the next level. But your support by going there and signing up would be incredible. Also, make sure you're telling people about this podcast and help me get the word out. You know, we're getting thousands of people a day listening to this that have subscribed to it, but you all need to be, you're the catalyst to get more people to listen and tune into this show. So tell people about it, get them to listen to it and to subscribe to it. So I think that's about it for now. I don't want to put anybody through any more sound bites of that presidential candidate known as Dementia Joe. Now, what I want you to take away from this show is this. The Democrat Party in this country is organized. It doesn't matter that their organization is built on lies and a far leftist communist ideology. It doesn't matter that they have these henchmen like Antifa and Black Lives Matter based on Marxism. It doesn't matter because what they've done is shown us that they can actually organize large groups of the population in this country. The right, the conservatives, the Republicans, you have to realize you have to get up off your couch and walk out that door. Popularity doesn't matter. It's not politics as normal. If you don't realize this, we are going to lose this country to the left. You have to get started with action now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.